So for today, we have Phil Gerbyshak, who is actually a return presenter on Thought Rock, and Phil is the author of 3 books, the most recent one being Twitter Works. He works with small businesses to increase employee and customer engagement and profits by teaching them to tell their stories more clearly inside, outside their organization, using the right tools to the right audience. It's really not about the tools, it's all about the conversations you participate in and the connections you create and cultivate. So with that, I'll introduce you to Phil.
Thank you very much, Rick, and hello everyone. Happy day it is here in Milwaukee. Hopefully it's great wherever you are. I am a bit of a relationship geek, as Rick he didn't use the term, but that's what it means when you're more concerned with the people than the tools. I'm a geek because I'm a technologist by trade. I spent 15 years plus in IT. My first job was delivering email by hand via a 9600 baud modem, but I realized quickly that it was the relationships that I built and that I continue to build that kept my life and my career moving ahead in the right way. So before we get started, just want to give a quick shout out to my wife. I know she's working today, but she is my rock, my thought rock, and someone that I bounce ideas off of. Diane is fantastic and someone that I contribute a lot of my success to. Now, the goal of today is to give you a plan that you can take forward in your life and your career, and you can really recession-proof it and create something great for yourself. So with that, I want to start with the most important question, the P, if you will, and start with thinking about what do I stand for and why that matters for you. So here's a little headstone, right? If I were to pass on today, little headstone that says, "Here lies Phil Gerbyshak. What did he stand for?" And of course my Twitter handle, because Twitter is what's hot, what's new. I mean, Google Plus is coming fast on its heels, but I think Twitter still is a lot of fun, a great way to connect with folks. And I think about, what the heck do I want to be known for? That's really an important question for me. And for me, I do want to be known as someone who connects people and ideas, and I learned that early on in my career. As I mentioned, hand-delivering email and not knowing exactly what everybody does makes hand-delivering email really difficult when you have an organization of a couple of hundred people. So I had to learn quickly, what do those people do? How do they play with others? What is important to them, and how do they do what they do every day so that I could make sure that the right messages got to them? And over my 20-year or so time in corporate America and in the Navy, I realized that I had to continue to cultivate those relationships and understand what people did in order to fulfill my purpose and my passion in life. So I want to be known as that relationship geek, as the person who helped connect people to ideas. That's really, really important to me.
Phil, a question with respect to that. Now, aside from what it is that you want you to start working on, what you want to be known for, can you take a step back maybe and talk to how some of the folks on the line can think about determining what's important first and foremost before deciding what they want to be known for?
Absolutely. So the first thing is, I found it's really important to think about what's kept me up at night. So I want you to think about what keeps you up at night. And I'm not talking about all work problems, or I don't have enough money, or I'm in a fight with my spouse, or the kids are having trouble at school. But I want you to think about those things that excite you. Those things in your life that when you're sleeping, you cook on them. Those things that when you wake up in the morning, you're like, wow, I figured that out, or wow, that's really exciting and I can't wait to do that. That's something that should be part of your purpose. So for me, I always thought, wow, I get to meet a bunch of new people today. That was always my big exciting thing, and that's why I do speaking and training now, because I get to meet a bunch of new people each and every day and connect with them. So that's the first thing, is think about what excites you. And the second thing that you need to think about is, what do you shy away from? So if there are things that you don't like to do, shovel those over to somebody else who might enjoy them. Now think about that as not as dumping the crap on somebody else, but instead as enabling them to do more of what they love so you can do more of what you love. Now, if someone is exactly like you and you shovel the crap at them, you're doing exactly that. You're shoveling crap at them. But if you find someone, like I've been fortunate enough to find in my wonderful wife, Diane, someone who loves details, and I'm a big picture thinker, every time I get a detail, I say, hey, Diane, can you take care of this for me? And she loves that. She loves to take care of the details. When we go out, I love the fact that I get to introduce her to people. She gets to meet folks, and that fires me up. So things that I don't love can also be part of my purpose as things not to do and things not to include in my purpose. So if you can just focus on what keeps you up at night in a good way, what keeps you up so that you're cooking on it, and then what do you not like to do, and then hand those over to somebody else so you can do more of what you love and see if that's really your passion and really your purpose. That'll help you find those purpose points for yourself. So that's how I found out that I really loved people and really loved connecting them with the ideas and things that they need to move forward. So I want you to take just a couple of minutes, just 2 minutes here, and I'd like each person that's on this call to take these 2 minutes and think about, what do you want to be known for? Think about it in just a couple of sentences. As I said, mine being connected to people, helping them improve, helping them do things, connecting them to ideas. People, if I were to put one word on my tombstone, it would be people. If I were to put 2 words, it would be people matter. So I want you to think about your sentence. We'll take just 2 minutes right now, and I want you to think about, what do you want to be known for? Give me about 45 more seconds. Okay. One of the other awesome ways that you can be known for something and find your purpose is to have goals. Goals are really, really important ways as well, because the ones that you achieve then become part of your purpose. The ones that you don't achieve probably fall away and become something either that doesn't need to be done or something that you're just not interested in and that you're able to give to somebody else. So think about your goals. Do you have goals? Do you know how to set goals? Are goals important to you? So I did a quick Google image search on the word goals, and I found a couple of results here. Actually, more than a couple. I found 14.6 million results for the word goals. 14.6 million results for the word goals. And I don't know if that's really helpful. I'm not really sure if 14.6 million results are going to help narrow down your goals. So knowing that, I want I wanted to come up with a way that I could help you wade through all of these results, all this crap, and help you set a meaningful goal for you. So I realized that goals just need two things to tie into your purpose, only two things, and two things only are important. Now, I've read the SMART model of goal setting, and I think that's great. I've actually kind of developed a smarter model of goal setting, but I realize that when I achieve things, there's only two things that are really important when I'm setting goals. Only two things, and the first thing is measurement. Does it have a metric for success? Is there some number, something I can see tangibly that allows me to measure it? Now, these are two measuring points here. One is a tape measure, the other is a yardstick. There are many other metrics you can have, and being folks who get that metrics matter, you know that if you don't have a goal, if it doesn't get measured, it probably doesn't get treasured, and it definitely doesn't get repeated. So you want to think about metrics and a measurement for your goal. And the other thing that I've found that's vitally important is you need a time. Some goals you need to do for a certain period of time. You might say that I want to exercise for 45 minutes 3 times a week. That has a measurement of 3 and a time of 45 minutes. So think about the metric and think about the time. Now, other goals, you might say, I'd like to lose 50 pounds by the end of 2011 or by June of 2012. I want to do a certain something one time. Maybe it's achieve one of your purposes. Maybe it's connecting with a bunch of people. Whatever that is, I want you to think of your goals in terms of metrics and in terms of time, because those are the two most important components to any successful goal. Now, I've had some big goals in my life. One of the best goals that I ever set was I wanted to write my first book. And in 2005, I decided that I was going to set a goal of writing an 80 or more page book by July 1st of 2006. I gave myself about 18 to 24 months, and I set that goal, and then I broke it down. And I said that equates to 6 pages every week, because of course we edit things down, about 6 pages every week with time off for holidays, with time off for vacation, with time off, because I knew we had some busy times at work, but I set that goal so that I had about 6 pages that I needed to write a week. I also knew that I needed to get it to the publisher. I knew there were things that needed to be done. And at 6 pages a week, I thought I would make my goal by July 1st. It was very achievable. It was something I could do. I knew that I couldn't just sit down and write 80 pages. Just like if weight loss is your goal, you can't lose 100 pounds. Just like if earning an advanced degree is your goal, you can't do that in a weekend. So I set that goal, and I'm proud to say that my first book, 10 Ways to Make It Great, was published June 30th, 2006, one day before my goal. Now, I don't know what would have happened had I set that goal to be much further into the close future, or if I'd set that goal much further into the past. I'm not sure what would have happened, but I can tell you that I met my goal because it was measurable. That was, I needed that book in my hands. 80 or more pages turned out to be about 86 pages. And I knew when my date was. I knew that it was July 1st of 2006. So when you're setting goals, I want you to think about those two things. And those will help you with your purpose. Now Nietzsche, who is a very famous old Russian guy, says to forget one's purpose is the commonest form of stupidity. And he says this because many times we set goals that have nothing to do with our purpose. If I set a goal that I want to complete 100 tax returns by next April 15th, and I am not an attention to detail person, that's a goal that I'm going to absolutely fail at. That goal does not line up with my purpose. That goal does not line up with who I am. So I want to encourage you to make sure that when you set goals that you align them with your purpose, that they tie in, and that you realize that goals that don't get met probably are not in line with your purpose. It's possible that you could be a lazy person, but if you're a lazy person, you probably aren't on this call. Okay? So what I'd like to encourage you to do is I'd like you to write down one goal. I'm going to give you 60 seconds to write down one goal. If you don't do anything else, just write down that you need to set one goal that's measurable, has some metric of success, and that's time-based. Now, I also encourage you not to set it so far out in the future that you forget about it, and not so close that you can't achieve it. So we'll take 60 seconds, and we'll set that goal. Okay, 15 seconds. All right. So if the P in our plan is purpose, and you need to find your purpose, the L in our plan is learning. Learning matters. Learning matters a great deal. If you're not learning, you're probably shrinking. You're probably not going to hold a great job for a long time because, as you know, things are changing. Things are changing as rapidly as ever in our history. The amount of information that's shared and the amount of information that's created is astronomical. Learning matters more than ever. And I'm not talking about going back to school and doing some sort of learning that way. I'm talking about any type of learning that you can do. Learning matters.
And Phil, do you have any suggestions in terms of, other than the traditional ways that we think of learning, I guess, in terms of books and classroom, do you have some suggestions for other ways that people should start looking at new ways to learn and incorporate that into their life?
Yeah, absolutely. So pick up a 1,000-page book and memorize that from cover to cover. No, that's not learning. That takes too much time. Instead, I want to encourage you to think about these options on how to learn. First of all, something called TED. If you go to TED.com, it's one of my favorite resources that you can find. TED.com is just a wealth of information in 20-minute or less segments that you can watch little videos. Often they put little summaries beneath them. And you can watch those videos and learn about a brand new topic. I typically will watch 1 or 2 TED videos a week because I don't have a lot of time, but on my iPad I can download it and I can listen to it and watch a TED Talk in about 20 minutes. Another thing that I can do is I can talk to the people around me. That taxi driver there is a very, very smart man. Last time I was up visiting my friends in Canada, I actually spent about an hour in a taxi because I didn't realize where the hotel was in relationship to the speaking engagement I had. So I stayed about an hour away, and this nice taxi driver taught me everything I could ever hope to learn about the Canadian region that I was staying in Regina, Saskatchewan. Very, very smart person. So I took the time to engage instead of just sleeping or instead of just keeping to myself. Instead, I made some time to learn. Now, the third way that you can get this non-traditional learning is certainly by groups of people like you, smart folks. You can get involved in a group. This picture is actually a group called Manager Tools. They have a Manager Tools meetup. We used to meet about once a quarter. Now it's about once a year. And we shared ideas and best practices on how to be better managers. So this is a great way, this in-person learnings, taking an hour out of your day. Things like Thought Rock are another great way that you can do it. You can learn something really quickly. In just 30 minutes, you can get a new idea, a new suggestion, new ways to make your team better using Thought Rock. One other way that a lot of people forget is the good old library card. You can check things out of the library very easily. You can get books on CD. You can often even download a bunch of books so you can read them later. So any of these ways, the learning's really important. So purpose, learning, really important. And one quote that I think really sticks with me about learning is recognizing that every day you can learn something. You just have to pay attention. So make time to pay attention to what's happening around you. Okay? So we've got purpose. We've got learning. Here's a couple ways to do it. With iTunes, with Thought Rock, your local library, and TED.com. But I want to talk about something else that's really important, and that is attitude. Attitude matters more than anything else you do. And having a positive attitude is really important. So attitude is something that we all can have. Now, attitude is not being a Pollyanna. It's not saying everything's great if everything's not. But attitude is just a matter of perspective. It's a matter of how you look at things. So I want you to look at this picture. What do you see? Do you see a woman's face? Or do you see a saxophone player? Both the same exact picture, but you need to think about how you see it. See, changing the way you look at something is a great way to adjust your attitude. I've got one more of these. I want you to think about what you see here. Do you see a wine goblet? Or do you see two people looking at each other? Again, it is the exact same picture. The truth of the matter is that attitude is all in how you see it.
Hey, Phil, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Yeah, just a question, and maybe tie it in terms of what you know or what we all know in terms of typically what are some of the struggles inside of the management inside of, specifically IT departments. I mean, anything you can think of in terms of what changing attitudes would be in terms of setting management or team goals inside of it. Is it really as simple as changing the attitude? And if so, how do you get teams to change perspective? I mean, do you have any insight on that?
Sure. Well, I can tell you that on our team, we had to extend hours. And we thought, man, extending hours, same staff, right? Of course, when management extends hours, they seldom give you more staff. You're asked to do more with less. But what we did instead is I knew that we had someone on our team that was having a hard time coming in first thing in the morning, someone who had typically worked the first shift. And by the first shift, I mean the 7 to 3:30 shift. But that was the quote-unquote best shift for them. Well, having to extend hours to 6 p.m. meant that I now had an opportunity to give someone a 9:30 to 6 p.m. shift. So by simply shifting the way that we looked at that and said, now we have an opportunity to move someone back so that someone probably is, they're going to get paid the same, but now they can carpool with their spouse, or they can take the bus because it's better on the bus schedule. These are opportunities for us to just shift the way that we're looking at things. Another thing that we had to do is when we were getting a lot of people that were starting to use Macintosh, we had an opportunity, and we didn't shift perspective fast enough. We thought, we're just going to continue to support PCs. For Citrix, we're not going to support Macintosh. So what happened is we didn't shift our perspective fast enough. We saw it as a burden, and another department picked up that support, and they were much more successful and thought of as a much better business partner than we were, simply by them shifting their attitude to one of service instead of one of policy. So those are two examples of how shifting either works, or in the case if you don't shift, it doesn't work. So one of my favorite quotes is by Dr. Maya Angelou. She says, if you don't like something, change it. That's the first thing that you can do when you're talking about attitude, is you can change it. You can make it better, if at all possible. And if you can't, then you need to change your attitude, right? Change the way you see it. Change the way you're dealing with it. So one thing that I want to challenge you with today is I want you to think about what sucks. What is one thing that you're not happy about? What is one thing that you can look at as a blessing instead of as a pain? Right? So that's the one thing that I want you to do with your attitude today, is I want you to bear with me here, and I want you to think about that one thing and how you can think about it a little bit differently than before. And I'm going to give you just 30 seconds. I want you to think about that one thing. I want you to write it down on your paper, and then I want you to quickly just write a sentence right underneath it about how you can look at it differently. Even if you don't currently look at it differently, I want you to write about what's possible. Because by thinking about what's possible, it's likely that it's going to slip into your subconscious, and you're going to find another way to look at that, maybe different than the one you saw on the paper, and start seeing it as something good instead of something bad. So 30 seconds. Okay, so we've got our purpose, we've got our learning, we've got our attitude, our P, our L, our A, and our N. The last thing is the most important thing. If you take nothing else from my call, I want you to think about networking. I want you to think about networking differently. If you look at these network cables, these Cat5 cables, they're probably pretty useful. They're probably things you know what to do with. But I can tell you that as they sit right there, they're completely useless. And the reason for that is because they're not connected to anything. Now, they might almost be in contact, and if you look at the far right side, you'll see that they are touching. They're in contact with each other. That's how most people see networking. They collect business cards or they contact, but they don't take the necessary step in order to make it better, to take networking up a notch. To take networking up a notch, you need to think about connections, not contacts. You need to think about how you can plug in and who you can plug into on those connections. Connections matter. Connections make contact useful. Now, there has to be a fit. You can't force networking. There's nothing worse than someone at a networking event who tries to connect with everybody who's there and thinks that everybody can help them do everything. The key is to ask questions and to be curious about the other people. Now, I want you to start small when you think about these connections. I want you to think first about your personal Mount Rushmore. I want you to think about the 4 people, only 4 people, that at 2:30 in the morning you would be willing to wake up, ask them a question and ask them for help, and better yet, those 4 people need to actually answer the phone, be people that would actually take your call that time. So I want you to think about those 4 people. Those are the 4 people that I want you to start networking with. I don't want you to go out and just start spreading your business cards. I want you to think about those 4 people. Now, something that I learned a long time ago is this quote I'm going to share with you, and something that I developed, and that is 5 years from now, you'll be the same person you are today, except for the people you've met and what you've learned from them. This is why networking matters. It's not just what can other people do for us in terms of finding us a job or helping us out directly, but in things that they share with us and things that we learn. So I want you to think about that and how you can connect with those people. These are folks that I learn from all the time. These are my friends down in Chicago. We met. One is from Scotland, one is now from Oregon, and one from Boston, and me from Milwaukee. None of us originally from Chicago, but all of us learn from each other. Every time we get together, every time we exchange emails, every time we connect on LinkedIn or Twitter or Facebook or Google+, or we write a blog post, we connect. And I learn from them, and they learn from me. So my challenge and my encouragement to you is get deeper with one of those 4 people. Make a new connection with them. One of those 4 people probably has something to share that you didn't know. So I want you to go deeper with them. I don't want you to stay stagnant in those connections and just take them for granted. I want you instead to take those 4 people and make one new connection today. Get deeper, ask a better question, and then connect back. Allow them to ask you a great question. So let's talk about those 4 steps real quick. Let's recap. First is finding your purpose. You can do that by setting goals, thinking about what keeps you up at night, and those goals need to be measurable. Those goals need to be time-based. Next thing you need to do is learn. You don't need to pick up a 400-page book in order to learn. Go to the library, iTunes, ThoughtRock, TED.com, any of those. Then I want you to think about your attitude, how you can look at something that sucks and change it. Then last of all, your network. I want you to get deeper with one person. My challenge to you is every day do one new thing. If you take nothing else from here, take the networking piece. Think about that. Or take the attitude piece or the goal-setting piece. Or learn something new. But every day, do one new thing. Thank you.
Fantastic. I'm just going to take a look at some of the questions here, Phil. And before I do that, just in terms of your background, in terms of some of the things and some of the organizations that you work with, are you doing any work with management teams or departments in terms of some of these things to help them, change behaviors, change perspectives, whether it's within IT services, HR, finance, corporations, or any of your consulting work? Are you dealing with corporations and doing that kind of work?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. Absolutely. I have one organization. We're actually re-architecting their whole culture. We're basing it around many of these topics. We're setting goals. We're setting them up with a personalized learning plan. We're helping shift perspective. They're a sales organization that's shifting from being an outbound sales organization, which cold called and did things, to being more inbound, but yet using things like social media in order to develop their client base. So absolutely, and of course networking is critical there. So one of my largest clients, that's absolutely exactly what we're doing.
And then could you talk in the context of the traditional IT services group, which is, again, a lot of the component of folks that would be on here, who struggle constantly with whether it's perception of services or challenges with moving things like ITIL forward and processes and best practices and changing behaviors. Can you talk about what management and what folks in those levels can do in terms of this whole thought of connections versus contacts? I mean, what can they do to move those kinds of relationships deeper inside an organization so they can maybe change some of the goals and the objectives that they have in terms of IT services?
Yeah, that's an awesome question, Rick, and that's absolutely vital to do. And how you do that is you spend time in the business. So you get out from behind your desk and you spend time in the business and you listen in on what the business is doing. Now, this might be things that you might have to do outside of your normal day. So you might need to watch recorded webinars of what a sales team is working on or what the rest of the IT organization is working on and understanding those goals. Again, the connection piece is not only taking your goals and connecting them up in the organization, but asking questions of other people. Hey, John, what are you working on? Hey, Rick, what about you? Hey, Jamie, what are you working on? Asking those questions and then finding ways to tie that back into what's important for you. Again, by finding out what you don't like, you may find out what other people are interested in. There are parts of IT that you probably have no idea what they do, at least not at a real deep level. So spend time with those people. Get out from behind your desk. If you're not a manager, ask your manager to spend some time doing some job appreciation, not to get your next position, but rather to serve your existing clients better. So the more you know about the people you serve, the better job you can do of serving them.
Great, and we have a question here from Susan. Susan asks, what is the definition of connection?
The definition of connection is when you think about that person, you think of them more than just their job, more than just what they have to offer, but something personal about them that you know, so that when you have to make a request of them, that they're at least comfortable enough to give you a yes or a no. Now, if you get just a, maybe I'll get back to you, can you send me an email? You're probably not connected to that person. If, on the other hand, if they're confident enough in your relationship to give you a yes or a no right there, that's probably someone that you're connected to. Now, if you get barked at, no, go away, well, that's probably not a connection either. But most people will give you the time of day. They'll listen to you if they're connected to you, and it's someone that's going to be willing to offer you some insights if you ask them a tough question.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And I wanted to highlight again the slide that's up on the screen right now and make sure, again, it's clear to everyone that if you want to directly contact Phil and reach out to Phil directly with some other questions or more exploration of some of his insights, you've got, looks like 3 different ways, direct ways to get in touch with him in terms of the website. You've got probably a blog, and you've got his Twitter, and then it says that he's obviously everywhere else, so you can just probably do a Google search on Phil and find him in a number of places. So please, I would encourage folks, if you want to reach out. Sometimes questions around topics like this are fairly personal, and if you want to work directly with Phil instead of posting a question to the broad group today, then that's more than acceptable, and I know that Phil will get back to you as soon as he can.
Absolutely.
So, Phil, I'm just going to see if there's any other questions as we pull up the last slide here. Again, there's some direct contact information for ThoughtRock as well. And again, if anything comes to us directly, Phil, that's with respect to questions or follow-up on this session, obviously that'll actually get directed to you through our ThoughtRock team. In addition to that, anybody that has any suggestions on further content topics, learning ideas for ThoughtRock in terms of any kind of a learning asset class, classroom-based, live virtual sessions, e-learning modules, blogs, you name it, please continue to communicate with the ThoughtRock team, and we're always open for those ideas and want to continue to grow this learning community inside of ThoughtRock. Last thing, I want to make sure that everyone is aware again for next Tuesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have another group that's coming from Baumgart that will be talking about the millennials. The millennials are coming. Is your help desk ready to support them? So please take a look at again the ThoughtRock website for more information, as well as keep in the loop on your emails that are coming in from ThoughtRock if you are getting them, and you'll have continued information on what that session is about. But again, it's a hot topic, and it's fairly important in terms of what's happening in the transformation that the millennials are bringing to the workplace. The key learning elements from that session will be how the millennial worker differs from older generations and how their experiences and expectations will challenge traditional support models. Also, how technology such as remote support and chat can enable help desks and service desks to create more real-time collaborative support experiences, and how traditional support processes and skills need to evolve and change to handle this new type of support experience. And it's interesting because the tie-in here with what Phil was talking about, I think when some folks hear and listen to those learning objectives that I just outlined for the millennials, there may be some eyes rolling and some sighs about, oh boy, I mean, do we really have to do this? And the answer is, I think it's changing your perspective, and the perspective being that this is happening. The millennials are different. They've been brought up differently with technology. They've been brought up differently in terms of how they communicate and their expectations. So I think it is incumbent on leaders and managers with inside organizations, especially service organizations, which is what IT services is to make sure they understand that customer, both internal and external, and use sessions like this on next Tuesday to start thinking about it and changing your perspective. So hopefully you'll either join yourself or pass this around to your colleagues. So Phil, any parting comments before we sign off here?
Well, my only thought is this: try something that's outside your comfort zone. Check out one of the ideas that I shared, or come next week and listen to what millennials are doing and think differently about how you see things. Instead of thinking about, oh crap, I have to learn something new. Be thankful that you get to learn something new, and be thankful that things aren't exactly the same as they were yesterday, because that would be incredibly boring, and I know most IT support professionals aren't interested in boring.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Phil. What we're going to do is we're going to leave this screen up for a few more minutes as we close out the session. We'll mute the rest of us. We'll leave the screen up, so if you are trying to write down the contact information, it'll be there for you for a few more minutes. I want to thank everybody for, again, sticking with us and joining us today and spending your lunchtime with us, and hopefully we'll see you back again at another session of Thought Rock Live. Thank you. Thanks, Phil.
Thank you.